prevailing narrative about Biden's age, that he's too old to serve, is not actually coming from any reliable source or any authoritative figure. It's coming from Republicans who want to attack President Biden.
So, one, I like your new haircut better.
Thanks.
Two, do you still think the issue of Biden's, to me, very clear cognitive decline was just something Republicans made up? Do you stand by that? We should talk about President Biden because I followed you for many years and you were a very ardent defender and insister that there was absolutely nothing wrong with Biden's cognitive state. He hadn't lost a step. He was sharp as a tack. I want to play you a clip of Harry Sisson from 2023. Let's listen.
I keep seeing people talk about President Biden's age in the media, so now is a great time to remind everybody that the issue of President Biden's age, that he's too old to serve and be president, is an issue entirely made up by Republicans. And what I mean by that is, Republicans have nothing on President Biden. He's passed so many pieces of amazing policy that the majority of Americans support and that even Republicans voted for. They know they can't attack him for that stuff because it's a losing strategy. So what do the Republicans do? They make stuff up about him. They made stuff up about Biden's age, his son, his family. It never ends because they have to have something to attack him on. And the way you know that the attacks on Biden's age are made up by Republicans is that they're not coming from reliable sources, right? Like nobody who's worked in the White House, no White House aides, no White House cabinet officials, no foreign leaders, no doctors, nobody who's worked close to President Biden has ever come out and said, yeah, his age is a problem. It's hindering his ability to be president. It is quite literally only coming from the Republican side because they want to try to discredit President Biden and they have nothing else to attack him on. And look, I want to make it clear that I think it's perfectly okay to ask questions about your leader's age. I don't think you're a bad person if you do so. That's not what I'm saying. But just understand that the prevailing narrative about Biden's age, that he's too old to serve, is not actually coming from any reliable source or any authoritative figure. It's coming from Republicans who want to attack President Biden.
So, one, I like your new haircut better.
Thanks.
Two, do you still think the issue of Biden's, to me, very clear cognitive decline was just something Republicans made up? Do you stand by that?
I think, well, first of all, watching a video from 2023 is crazy. Like, it's just like, that Harry feels like so long ago. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would have phrased it better. I don't think it's an issue that Republicans made up. I think it's one that Republicans just lied about and use very selective editing and clips to push it. I think a lot of the moments you see about President Biden online of a stutter, a stumble, whatever it might be, are just very selective. And if you follow a person with a camera 24/7 and keep it on them all the time, they're bound to make mistakes. And you can very easily make that person look silly or dumb or in some sort of decline. Guarantee if I did the same thing to Donald Trump and made a hyper edit, I could convince you he has dementia. And so I think this was a really well-pushed thing by Republicans to discredit him. But what I will say is President Biden aged. He got older. No doubt. Spoke slower, walked slower. The question about the presidency is not whether you walk fast or whether you speak fast. It's can you be a good legislator? And I think undoubtedly, if you're looking at President Biden's term, he was a fantastic legislator. He got more done than any president in modern American history that will change our country for generations. Should he have run for re-election? Probably not. Probably not. Hindsight is 2020. He probably shouldn't have done that. But from the times I've met President Biden, which were later into his term, I think like 20 days before he left office or something like that, and then in the May of that election year, I had no problems, and I thought he was fine to me.
So I actually agree with you that he was an accomplished legislator in terms of signing significant and consequential legislation. He signed multiple very consequential bills. I disagreed with a lot of what is in those bills, but that's a conversation for another day. The thing is, though, it doesn't really take much to put your name on a piece of legislation that Congress passed, and you have a whole apparatus behind you that's supporting those policy decisions. I think it's very clear. You're right that some of those clips were like out of context or what have you, but a lot of them weren't. And he genuinely was confused and addled. And we saw in that debate, for example, that he said that what did he say? That they killed Medicare? It was genuinely tough to watch. And he clearly had aged. And in the video that I played, you said it's just Republicans saying this. And maybe at the time, that's all that was saying it. You also had more independent commentators like myself calling it out. But now, I mean, we have entire books that have been written and many Democratic insiders coming out and saying that he was forgetting close friends' names years ago. Before there were concerns before he even ran for president the first time. So I do think the Democrats covered that up. And I don't think that you're a liar. I don't think you intentionally covered anything up, but I do think you played a role in pushing a narrative that turned out to be very wrong.
I mean, the thing about a lot of those books is people that were actually in the room have come out and said this event never happened or said individual wasn't even here. So a lot of these claims I find to be dubious. But again, I want to make it clear that, and I agree that like when I made that video in 2023, it was just a different time in politics. Different people, were pushing these things. But I want to make it clear again that I think President Biden aged, no doubt. But do I think he was a bumbling fool behind the scenes and he was forgetting friends' names and he couldn't do the job? No. Nobody that was in President Biden's inner circle have come out and said, yeah, he just couldn't do the job. He just couldn't. And a lot of these folks are honest people who've been in politics for a while. Donald Trump had more people in his inner circle come out and say, yeah, this guy is, he doesn't know anything about history, doesn't know anything about the military, is really dangerous, has suggested dangerous things. And I think that is the more concerning story as opposed to President Biden, who was very successful and got a lot of things done. I'd rather take Biden at like age 100 than I would Donald Trump at any age.
Oh, God. Well, thankfully, those aren't the only two options. Biden at
Thankfully,
age
yes,
100. Yeah. I'm trying to imagine that.
Well, thankfully, those aren't the only two options. But, the point is Trump is so much worse than Joe Biden. And I think every metric, in my view, I even say that that Donald Trump is worse mentally than Joe Biden. It takes a certain kind of crazy to post an AI video of you shitting on Americans. And I don't think Joe Biden has ever met that threshold.
Well, I think I actually said years ago that I already think Trump is too old to be president. I believe that we need a maximum age on the presidency since we have a minimum. Maybe it's 65 or 70 is the latest you can take office, or I don't know what the exact age would be, but I see no reason why if you're going to have a minimum, you can't have a maximum. But I actually also think Trump is very old and very clearly not healthy. He's different. His mental issues are significantly different than Joe Biden. Trump has never really been like coherent, and he's always been kind of crazy. I do think, though, if you go back and watch Trump in 2016, which I remember, that was my first election voting, was 2016. And so I watched that cycle very closely. If you watch Trump in the 2016 presidential debates, and then you watch him now or in the 2024 debates, he is a different person. Like, he is much less coherent and put together. I think that's valid, but I don't think he's in the same place. I still think he's sharper in some ways, verbally and mentally, than Biden.
I mean, you said it to me. You have the right to that opinion. I just think that's somebody that rants about boats and batteries and sharks and whether you'd want to jump in the water with the shark or stay on the sinking boat, or rants about Hannibal Lecter and talks about them as if they're a real individual, or the many other very strange moments that Donald Trump has. I can't look at that person and say that they're sane. And I don't think Joe Biden has ever said anything similar. He's never talked about Hannibal Lecter.
Well, he did tell a lot of stories that never happened.
I mean, like, can you give me an example?
Well, like, he talked about this story a bunch of times, and I don't have the details in front of me, about how when he was a kid, his dad dropped him off and saw two men kiss, but he's told like 10 different versions when I was a kid, and that's how I learned to accept gay people. And he's told like 10 different versions of the story. Historically, it makes no sense and isn't possible. I mean, we can go to Corn Pop. Do we need to talk about Corn Pop?
Wait, why? But why is that not possible that he saw that when he was a kid?
I'd have to pull up the details, but I think it's something that, like, he claims that two men were just kissing in public in like 1960 or something, where it's just very implausible. And then he's told the story a bunch of times over the years, but each time it's like in a different, major details about it are different. I can't give it to you off the top of my head, but if you look it up, there are like fact checks of this story that he tells. And so he did also have that kind of bumbling nature to him sometimes. But I think the things you're identifying with Trump, though, those aren't like elderly things, are they? He was doing that kind of thing 10 years ago.
I don't remember Donald Trump doing things like that 10 years ago in 2016. He was crazy in 2016. He was still crazy. But was he speaking about movie characters as if they were not only real, but also living at one point? I don't think so. I think he's gotten a lot worse from the kind of crazy, kind of affecting your brain kind of crazy, not just he got older.
All right. Well, final question to you. Who should the Democratic nominee be in 2028 if you're choosing, both in terms of who you'd personally prefer and who would be a good choice politically?
It's a lot of great. I think we have a really deep bench, and I hope there's a robust primary in 2028. I think Gavin Newsom is obviously doing very well. I know there's concerns with him being from California. I think he's great. I think he's a fighter, and that's always appreciated by people. I like Wes Moore from Maryland. I like Gretchen Whitmer. I like Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg. And I think you have even more folks like John Ossoff from Georgia. I think the bench is really, really deep. And so whoever the Democrats pick, I think I'm going to be happy with. Oh, J.B. Pritzker as well is fantastic as well. So we have a lot of good options, and I'm looking forward to it. It's only three short years away.
Oh my gosh. And they're going to start it like 2 years before the actual election as well. So
Yeah.
we'll be back talking about all of this before you know it. Harry, there's so much more we can talk. We should talk again sometime, but really appreciate you taking the time. Try to stay safe out there, not get any crap dumped on your head by the president. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.